Hello and welcome to this video on reading and using scales. This is part of our Level 1 and Level 2 Maths course. The learning outcomes for this video are to read and use scales and also to recognise and make use of scales on simple maps and scale drawings. Our linked learning refers back to measures, where we used scales to take readings off various things like rulers and jugs. So on this jug here, the process was look at the big gap, which is 100 millilitres, and then divide it by the number of small steps, which was 4. So each small step is 25 millilitres. So this jug here has a reading of 175 millilitres. The other things scales relate to very heavily are ratios, because a scale is essentially a strapline for a ratio. So you're going to be told the relationship between the map and the real world, and all you need to do is put whatever you're reading under the correct side to work out the other thing. So there are various ways they're going to give you this ratio, sometimes known as a scale. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at all of these methods. So they can be written for you like this, where you have 1 centimetre is equal to 2 metres. You can have something like this on an Ordnance Survey map, where you have 1 in 50,000. It could be a little key like this, where you have 1 centimetre is 0.5 of a kilometre, or it could be like this, where you've got a relationship between miles and a distance on a map. So all we're going to do is have a look at this relationship between the map or the drawing and the real world, and just show you how to use it as a ratio. So all we're going to do is take whatever scale we've been given and turn it into this ratio. And this ratio is the relationship between the drawing or the map and the real world or real life. So for example, you might be given something that says 1 centimetre on your map is 2 kilometres in the real world. And depending on what you've been given, either a reading from the map or a distance in the real world, so whether you're going to or from the scale drawing, depends on which side you put that value to work out the other thing. So that's all we're going to do now, is show you how to interpret the scale into a strap line and then use it in a systematic way. So let's look at our first scale type. And this is where they just tell you straight out that there's a relationship between the map and the real world. So 1 centimetre on my map is 2 metres in the real world, or my drawing, whatever it is you're talking about. So the best way to do it is to go map and real world and create your strap line. So on the left, our map is in centimetres and our scale drawing is in meters, and we've got 2 of them. So Karen is using a scale on her garden of 1 centimetre is 2 meters. And this has given us our strap line where we're going to convert things. So we've got our map or our scale drawing and our real world. 1 centimetre is 2 meters. Then, depending on whatever they've given us, depends where we put that value. So if the gap for the patio is 4 centimetres on the drawing, so 4 centimetres lives under the centimetres side, how big is it in the real world? So using what we already know about ratios, to get from 1 to 4, I multiply it by 4. Therefore, to get from 2, I multiply it by 4, I get 8 meters. So in the real world, it is 8 meters. So can you see how we've gone from taking our scale, creating our strap line, putting in our value and getting our answer? Let's try that with another type of scale that you might be given. So here we've been given a key, and we can work out from the key that we've got the map and the real world, and on the map we've got centimeters, which is 1, and in the real world we're talking about kilometers, and when we've got one of those we end up with a half of those. So that's our ratio. That's our starting point in our relationship. So we've gone from our key to our strap line. Now all you need to do is give me something to convert. So if he has walked 10 kilometers, so here we go, we've been given kilometers, so we need to stick the 10 under there. How far is this on the map? So how did I get from a half to 10? Well, I've multiplied it by 20. Don't forget what we said about ratios. If you're at all unsure, you take the bottom number and you divide it by the top number. So 10 divided by a half is 20. So on here, we multiply by 20, because what you do to one side, you do to the other, and we end up with 20 centimeters as our answer. So our answer is 20 centimeters. So again, we've gone from a visual scale to something we've put into a ratio and a strap line. We've been given a value that we put into our strap line, and this gives us our answer. It's no different for this type of scale. So here we've been given a scale of 1 in 72. Now when you get a scale like 1 in 50, 1 in 72, 1 in 20,000, there's still a relationship between the map and the real world, but both of the units are the same. They're both centimeters. So 1 centimeter on my model or my map or my drawing is 72 centimeters in the real world. So here, if I have a wing for the aircraft and it's 8 centimeters long on the model, so the 8 centimeters is relating to the model, then how did I get from 1 to 8? I multiplied it by 8. So if I multiply one side by 8, I multiply the other side by 8. And that gives me 576 centimeters. Now it's asked for the answer in meters, so this is one of their favorite questions because it also tests your knowledge on measures, which we did in a previous lesson. So I've got 576 centimeters. So to turn centimeters into meters, I divide, because I'm going from small to big, centi meaning 100, so it's 5.76 meters, and that's our answer. So for this type of scale, the units are the same, they're both centimeters, and we've gone from the scale to a strap line that says 1 to 72, and I've been given something that relates to the model, so it went under this side. I found my ratio scale to find my answer, and then I had to convert my answer into meters. Let's look at a similar scale, but with a bigger number on a map, and you get this quite a lot on map. So Teresa uses a map with a scale of 1 to 50,000. So we've got the map and the real world, and the map and the real world are both in centimeters, because this type of scale always uses the same units. Now, if I've got 1 to 50,000, I've set up my strap line. Now, all I need to do is put the value I've been given under the correct side. So the 8 centimeters is on the map. So the map is 8 centimeters. So I've gone from 1 to 8 by multiplying by 8. So I have to multiply the other side by 8, and I get quite a large number. It's actually 400,000 centimeters. Now, in the real world, we don't talk about the distance from here to the shop is 400,000 centimeters. We need to convert it into meters and then into kilometers. So centimeters to meters, we divide by 100. So we end up with 4,000 meters. And then to go from meters to kilometers, we divide by 1,000, and that gives us 4 kilometers, which is what they want for the answer. So the distance is 4 kilometers as the answer. So let's recap on what we did. We had a scale of 1 in 50,000 that we create our strapline with. So our map is 1 and the real world is 50,000. Whenever you get the scales of 1 in 50, 1 in 25, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 20,000, the units are the same. So they're both centimeters. So here we have 1 centimeter is 50,000 centimeters in the real world. We haven't got 1 centimeter. We've been given 8. So the 8 lives under the map side of our ratio. It gives us our ratio scale of 8, which we multiply the other side by 8, and we end up with 400,000 centimeters. We don't use that kind of terminology in the real world, so we need to turn our centimeters into kilometers. So do this in 2 steps. Centimeters to meters is divide by 100, and meters to kilometers is divide by 1,000. And you end up with 4 kilometers as the correct answer. Another way of giving you a scale, again on a map, might be through the distance of a ruler and the scale. So here we have our scale, where we've got a relationship between our map and the real world. So we've got the map and the real world, and the map is in centimeters and the real world is in miles. And it's telling us from this part of our scale that 1 centimeter is 5 miles. You could use 2 centimeters is 10 miles. It really doesn't matter. Then what you'll need to do is something practical, like take the measurement yourself. So if you want to measure the distance from here to here, you use the ruler and you count, let's say, 12 centimeters. So you do something practical with your ruler. So now the 12 centimeters has come off the map. It goes under the map side of our ratio. I've multiplied this side by 12, so I need to multiply that side by 12, and I get 60 miles. So the distance between these 2 points is 60 miles. Finally, another way of doing scales is to take the map or the drawing in squares and talk about squares, so that if you have to draw something, you can draw the exact number of squares. So here we've got a scale that's telling us the distance from here to here is 1 meter in the real world. So we've got the map or the drawing and the real world. The real world is using meters, and I know that 1 meter is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Does that make sense? So now I'm talking about the real world in meters, and as far as my drawing's concerned, because it's got all these lovely squares on, I'm going to talk about squares. So if I wanted to find the length of, let's say, the window, and it goes from here to here, all I need to do is count squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 squares on my drawing. To get from here to here, I multiplied by 2. Do the same on this side, and you can say that the window is 2 meters long. And it works the other way as well. So if we've got the map and the real world with squares to meters, and I've got 5 to 1, if I wanted to draw a table that was, let's say, 2.4 meters long, then I would put 2.4 under this side of my ratio, because this is the real world. The table is real. So how did I get from 1 to 2.4? I multiplied it by 2.4. Do that on the other side, and you end up with 12 squares that I need to draw. So on your drawing, you would start here, 12. So your table would go in there. So that's going to and from the map. And that will be the crux of our next video on how to put things onto and take things off the drawings. What we're primarily concerned with is going from a scale that you've been given to a strap line on a ratio in order to do these conversions. And that's it really. So all of these things that represent scales are just ways of giving you the strap line for a ratio that you can then use to do your conversion to and from the map, which we'll cover in the next video. So all of these things that we've looked at are just different ways of giving you a strap line on a ratio. And that concludes our learning outcomes, which we covered at the same time, which was to read and use our scales and also recognize and make use of scales on simple maps and scale drawings. And as far as map and drawing scales are concerned, they are just a method of giving you a strap line to a ratio. That concludes this video. If you have any questions or want more practice, please don't hesitate to ask your teacher. I hope you've enjoyed this video.